What's up, guys? We are back for another episode of TMP, the Menace Podcast, and I have a very special guest here, not in the studio, but right here on the laptop on Zoom. For me, he's the absolute Canadian sensation, Iain Valliere. I call him Valliere. I just asked him how to pronounce his last name for real. He says Valliere. Okay, I have a little bit of French, so I call him Valliere, but it's Valliere. What's up, brother, man? It's so good to see you.
You're saying it the right way, but yeah, thanks for having me, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be on.
No, how can I have a podcast and not bring somebody on from Canada who is, for me, the breakthrough star this year, last year's Olympia.
Thank you.
And, and I figured, just finding out that you're only 30 years old, so you have a whole bodybuilding career ahead of you, and you're already one of the top guys in the world. That, for me, that's unbelievable. I mean, I didn't turn pro until I was 32. Yeah. And you're already a top guy in the Olympia at 30 years old. So it tells me that your future is awesome. You have all the time in the world to get exactly where you probably want to go, and that is to the top of the Mr. Olympia, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think things have, I've really been coming into my stride the last, year, 2 years. And I think this year, like you said, was, a really big breakout year for me. I mean, it had some highs and some lows, but I think I really ended it on a high note and kind of showed what I'm capable of. And, I hope to continue that into 2021.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I follow you for many, many years. A lot of people don't know. We even worked together at one point. But here's what I wanted to ask you first. Who was Iain as a kid? Did you play any other sports, or was bodybuilding basically the only sport you ever been involved in? No,
so I've always been a guy that's a very individual sport athlete. Like, I was never one for team sports. I did play a little football and stuff like that as I got older. But from when I was very young, like 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way through high school, I was a track athlete. So I was a sprinter. I ran 200 meters, did some long jumps. So I was always someone that was very, into the individuality of what work I put in got what I got as a result. Like, I'm not depending on the success of other people or stuff like that. It was completely what I put in. So yeah, it was mainly track and field was what I did, from a young kid up and through high school. As I got a little older, I realized track wasn't really going to be a career. So I just wanted to use that speed I had and, have some fun, play some football with my friends. I had some friends that played some, provincial level, like state level football.
So when you say football, do you say American football or
American football.
Yeah, because I don't know in Canada, because football in Europe means soccer.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, no, American football.
Got you.
So I played a few years of that, but I mean, it was really more just for fun. I mean, I knew it was nothing that was going to lead to anything other than just, playing some sports with my buddies and, having that camaraderie. But that football is what really led into lifting more weights. I always lifted weights for track, but it was very track specific, like the cleans, stuff like that was really more explosivity, like track specific. And then as I got into football, like I was only 165 pounds when I started playing football. I was 17 at that time. So, I mean, I was still pretty small. So then I started, lifting weights to, put on some size for the football. And, I just started getting into that groove where I really enjoyed, feeling stronger, getting more muscular. And I could see that translate into how I was playing football and, everything else like that. So, and then that kind of just spiraled away from football and strictly into the gym. And then, as it, I ended up in bodybuilding shows, and the rest is history, right?
At what age did you realize that the lifting weights for football is something that can go further, that can get into a different career? At what age did you realize you should, or you would want to be a bodybuilder?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know a ton about bodybuilding when I first started lifting weights. I mean, like I knew about, obviously, I'd seen the YouTubes of the Ronnie Coleman, the Yeah Buddy, and like all that kind of stuff. And, I'd seen guys like you on YouTube and, those guys from the 90s, early 2000s. And I knew about it, but I didn't know anything about the competitive scene, any more than what I'd seen on YouTube. So, once I started lifting more weights and I kind of got into that world, it wasn't until probably 2 years later that I started working at a local supplement store, and a couple of guys there knew the local bodybuilding scene a little more. And they're like, you got a good physique, like maybe you should try bodybuilding. And I didn't really know anything about it. And they kind of directed me in that, that way. And, I did my first local show in 2010. So I was 19 years old. And then, once you do your first one, you catch the bug, right? It's, I want to do better next time. I should have done this. Next time I'm going to do this,
So the first competition was in 2010.
Yeah. So this is just over 10 years I've been competing now.
Okay. So, and how long have you been training as a bodybuilder?
Since probably 2008 or 9.
Okay. So you just a short time and you just went on stage real fast.
Yeah. I mean, like I got pretty big in a short time. Like when I graduated high school in 2008. And then, you know, right that summer after, so 2008 going into 2009 is really when I started lifting weights seriously. You know, and I went from 175 pounds up to 215 pounds just in that summer. You know, wow. And then I continued over, you know, that into 2009 and then into 2010. So by the time I started working at the supplement store, and these guys made the suggestion, I was already about 225 pounds, you know? So, you know, I had a good level of muscularity already at that point. You know, and then the first show I ever did, in 2010, I was about 204, 205 on stage, I believe.
Oh, wow. Was that because, did you take advantage of the supplements at the store where the supplements came up missing or stuff? Anything came up short?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, these like, you know, it's obviously having those guys with that kind of knowledge around me was a big, you know, advantage for sure. But I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I remember my first show. You know, I had read somewhere online that to get really lean, you had to eat no carbs. So like I was eating no vegetables, only white fish, like nothing that had even 1 gram of carbs in it. You know, like I was just doing everything that I read online. You know, half of it was just craziness, you know, doing 3 hours of cardio a day. And, you know, like it was just a complete overhaul for what I needed at that time. Right. So,
right. But
I got in good shape.
Yeah. I mean, and working in like I said, working in the supplement store with all the supplements around. I mean, I think at 19 years of age, you didn't have the kind of money to afford all the supplements. So working in the store, did that help you? Did you get any discounts or were you able to just?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I got the discounts and then, you know, you had the advantage of, you know, when people back then, like when people would return product, you know, like say someone bought a tub of protein, took 1 scoop of it, they're like, I don't really like this or whatever. We get to take the returns home. So I was hoarding all the returns, you know, anything that came in, whether it was a product that was good for me or not, or what it was, I just took anything I could and I was just loading everything in there, you know?
So who was there anybody who guided you or was it just all information off online?
It was a mix. I mean, I had a local guy, this guy named Freddie Palmer, who was a bodybuilder in the early 90s. You know, he did a couple local competitions, had an excellent physique, but he had some health issues, you know, early in his life that prevented him from really pursuing it further. So I had linked up with him kind of right when I wanted to compete. And, you know, he helped me more from a training standpoint, you know, and introduced me to like the basic stuff of like, you know, doing drop sets and supersets and rest pause sets and this kind of stuff that, you know, I hadn't been accustomed to at all at this point in my career. You know, I just was going in doing, you know, 3 sets of 12. Like I didn't really have any idea what I was doing. So, you know, he kind of put me in that direction from a training standpoint and, you know, kind of dictated the intensity and stuff like that. But yeah, from a diet standpoint, I mean, I was shooting darts in the dark, you know?
Yeah. So what finally made you click probably after the show that, you know, what happened for you to say, okay, I'm ready to take this to the next level?
Yeah. So I think the first couple of shows I did, 2010 and 11, I just competed as a junior. So I was 19 years old. So I competed only in the junior division. You know, and I won all the shows I competed. I even won the Canadian Nationals as a junior in 2011. And I think at that point, you know, when I won the junior nationals, you know, I could see that I had some potential. But when I looked at my physique that I had and then looked at the guys that were winning like the heavyweights at nationals, I knew I was still like quite a departure from where these guys were. So that was at that point after I won the junior nationals 2011, I decided to take some time away from bodybuilding, you know, to put on some muscle. I mean, I had some things like the break I have on my arm, and I had some other mishaps kind of happen in that time in 2012, 2013. But it wasn't, I think, until I came back in 2013, late 2013, competing in the men's open class. So I would have been 22 at this point, and came back to compete in the men's open classes to, you know, make a pursuit for my pro card. And then when I could see how much my physique had progressed and kind of how I looked compared to the guys that were competing at the national level at that time, then I'm like, okay, you know, maybe I really have a shot to do this, you know, more than just for fun, you know?
Well, your story kind of reminds me of Rami's story because he started, well, late or early, but within 10 years, he made it to the top of the bodybuilding world, which means, you know, I mean, if you can compete after 1 year of just training, or maybe even 1.5 years, that means you got to have great genetics, you know, and it's just, sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, putting it all together. You know, not only the mindset, but the workouts, the diets, and all that stuff. So when did you realize, I said, listen, I think I can be better than you know, I can do this. I can be a pro, and I can, you know, maybe make it to the Olympia. When did you realize that you were good enough to do it?
That's tough to answer because it was really such a progression, you know. I mean, like every show, I was really just chasing the next show, you know. So like when I won my first show, you know, my first local show competing in like the men's heavyweight, then I won the provincial show, which is like a state level show. And then from there, you know, I got invited to do the amateur Olympia that was in Mexico that year, which I hadn't planned to compete at a pro qualifier that year. So it was kind of like a last minute decision.
What year was it?
That was 2014.
Okay. So that's where you turned pro?
Yeah, I turned pro 2014, the amateur Olympia that was in Acapulco, Mexico that year. So, but that was, you know, I wasn't planning to compete the Canadian Nationals that year. I was planning to take another year and do that in 2015 to make sure that I was, you know, really dominant and sure that I would win my class at the Canadian Nationals. But I think, you know, that was really when, you know, I went to that show in Mexico kind of completely unexpectedly, you know, and not 100% confident. I still went in there and won the show fairly handily. Then I was like, okay, maybe I'm a little better than I think here, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, I knew the show, like looking at some of the other international shows, the guys that win Canadian Nationals, I knew it wasn't the cream of the crop, but I knew that I'd gone in there at short notice, you know, in a year I wasn't even planning to compete at a pro qualifier and I still won. So, you know, I thought that at this point now I have a pro card and it's like, okay, now this is your opportunity. You know, the doorway's open. What are you going to do with this? And I think that was the point when I'm like, really like, okay, I want to make this my full-time thing and put all my energy into this. And that's kind of where it went from there. Yeah.
So you basically started competing as a pro in 2015.
Yeah. So the first season I worked with you was 2015 when we did Orlando and then Toronto. So my pro debut, and that was 2015. Yeah.
Okay. And from then on, you started competing. And I remember because I followed you and I saw what you can do. And you said continuously every year got better and got better. You got bigger, but you always got better, you know? And that's why I remember I saw you, I was emceeing a show in Europe. I can't remember what show it was. And you stood on that stage, you turned into a freak. Let me put it this way. You literally turned into a freak show because you put on so much size, you know, and came with crazy condition. And this is what I was used to seeing when I saw you compete, because you did a few shows in Europe, right?
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, you know I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on trifecta.
Because you did a few shows in Europe, right? Before.
I won, the first pro show I ever won was the Big Man show in Spain.
The show in Spain, okay. So you won that show and qualified for your first Olympia.
Yes, that was 2018, yeah.
Okay. So your first Olympia, that 2018, so 2019, you did not qualify, or you set out for a specific reason?
No, I missed it. I missed qualifying by 1 point.
Okay, so you missed it by 1 point. So now going back to 220 last year, I watched you on your first show. What was it, the Tampa Pro? Because I remember I was doing the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know what you're capable of, and I know what you can look like, you know, and I remember I got so much shit online for saying what I saw on stage. I said I saw Iain Valliere, who did not look at, you know, you weren't at your best, your color was off. And I remember, but you never replied. I sent you a text.
I saw that. Yeah,
I sent you a text.
I saw that just when you messaged me the other day, and then that's why I was like, "Who is this?"
I know. I was like, he never replied to me. I sent you a text, and I said, "Get your color right."
Yeah,
you know, because I thought, if you had to change the, which you finally did, and you looked 10 times better at night, but it still wasn't the Iain that I was used to seeing. So I got so much shit for saying that, you know, that he was off, you know, that your color wasn't right, and I think I made a remark somewhere where I said, "It's, you know, as a pro, you know, you should at least get your color right, you know." Absolutely. But that's not a knock on you, because I never had anything negative to say about you. But everybody has his fans, so your fans trying to chew my ass out for that, you know. So and then you came back to what was it, the New York Pro?
Yeah.
Okay. Still not the Iain that I know you're capable of, but you were good enough to win the New York Pro and qualified for the Olympia. And at the Olympia is where you impressed me for real, because that was, without a doubt, the best Iain that ever stepped on any stage. You know, even though that there was some shows where you looked like you were a little bit freakier size-wise, but the combination you brought to the Olympia was unbelievable. And, you know, and you could have been, in my eyes, you could have been as high as 5th or 6th with that package, you know. But I guess it's still, sometimes you still gotta, you know, you gotta bring your name. It's, you know, I'm not saying you don't have a name, but sometimes you gotta pay your dues. You know, that's the way I did. You know, and I think what you did at the Olympia was the perfect scenario for you. You did not as well in Tampa. You lost to Hunter Labrada. He came back to New York Pro, and then you killed it at the Olympia and basically beat all the guys, you know, that you were compared to in the beginning. Who's going to be the best of the newer guys? We'll call them the newer guys, you know, even though you were not a rookie, but the newer guy. And you basically showed everybody that you're the next one in line. So what does that feel like, knowing that you nailed it at the Olympia, you know, and now the judges are probably going to look at you next year and they're going to judge you by the look that you brought to the Olympia stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the pressure's up for sure, but I mean, it's also a big sense of validation for me. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, I'm sure all bodybuilders have experienced this. Like, you know, when you see yourself, you see it in the gym, and you see it in certain progress photos, and you know that it's there. You know what it's capable of. And then I stepped on stage at Tampa, and I'm like, this isn't what I was seeing leading up to the show. And I stepped on New York, I'm like, okay, this is better, but I still know I have so much more in there, you know. And I couldn't really like think of what it was. I'm like, you know, is it the size? Is something's off there? You know, it just wasn't what my mental vision of myself was, you know? And I think the Olympia was one of the first times in my entire career that, you know, I was 100% happy with the look and looked at it as, okay, this is truly me and what I'm capable of, you know?
Isn't it the best feeling when you go into it, especially at the Olympia, and you look at yourself and you're just like, damn, I'm so happy.
Yeah. I mean, and I had that feeling all, like, you know, it almost gets nerve wracking because, you know, going into that Olympia is leading up to the show every day. Like, I flew in to Orlando 10 days out. So like the Wednesday or Thursday, the week prior. And every day I was there, I was like getting better and better and better. And I was just in my head, I'm like, I'm going to fuck it up. You know,
what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Yeah. It's like, this is going too well. This can't be this easy, you know? So everything was getting better and better every day. And it just, you know, we kept that course going right into the Olympia. So, I mean, it was one of those things where the stars aligned. I think, you know, it was a lot of things that we had learned, right? I mean, learned from, you know, fucking up so bad in Tampa, you know, and then we took a bit of that and learned in New York where, you know, we did better, but, you know, like you said, it definitely wasn't perfect. And, you know, I definitely had a lot more in store. You know, and we took the intel that we learned from those two shows and brought that into the Olympia. And I think, you know, having those two mishaps kind of happen were detrimental to, you know, the look that we brought into the Olympia, right?
Right. So what would you say was the reason in Tampa? What went wrong other than the color?
Yeah, Tampa was a thing completely with water manipulation. I mean, for me especially, you know, I found the more tissue I've got, I'm someone that I honestly have to keep water in right through. Like the Olympia, I drank water right through the Friday, Saturday as if it was a normal day. Like I never cut it, never lowered it, nothing whatsoever.
It's funny because when you think back, and you don't even have to go back far, you think back, you know, you got to cut your water, don't drink, you got to dry out and all this. And people don't realize, and then cut your sodium and all that stuff. And people don't realize that's the biggest mistake you can do. You know, Absolutely. But this is what you learn coming up in shows, and everybody that somewhat coaches that tells you, you got to stop the water, you got to stop the water. And now you realize stopping the water and stopping the sodium is the biggest mistake you can do.
Yeah, especially for me. I mean, you know, I know some guys can get away with that, but for me, you know, it's my physique just completely dissipates once that water comes out. And you know, the mistake we made was twofold in Tampa because we reduced the water and then we introduced a little diuretic. So then I just like from both ends just came down completely. You know, so the combination of, you know, uber flatness plus the bad tan just made for a really poor, flat, washy look, you know. So for going into New York, then we said, okay, well, you know, let's not change a ton of factors here. Let's just keep the water in, you know. So we used no diuretics. We kept the water right in so that I held a little more fullness. But the conditioning wasn't, you know, at the best it's been for me. But I had enough size and my conditioning was good enough to win that show. You know, and then going into the Olympia, you know, we kind of learned both ends, you know, from having all the water and no diuretics and having both diuretics and water out. And then we kind of found that middle ground for the Olympia. So, and it was a combination of that. And then just instead of doing, more aggressive like carb up, I just kind of like slowly ate into the show, like for the Olympia, like, starting on the Monday, Tuesday, just a little bit more carbs, Like it was never like a carb up, like where I had like 1,000 grams in a day or anything.
Right. Sometimes the best thing is if you just cruise. If you're already there, you just cruise into the show.
Exactly. I mean, that's the look was there at, 4, 5, 6 days out. So, we really just tried to, keep the carbs at a level that we were maintaining or, getting a little bit fuller, but not really trying to push it too crazy. And then we just let things kind of run its course right at the end. Like you said, the look was already there. There was no reason to, try and, do magic things to get an extra 2% better and end up being 20% worse. So, but yeah, I mean, it all came together perfectly for that Friday and Saturday.
So what's the goal for 21?
Yeah, so first show on my agenda is going to be Toronto Pro. This is a show I've, being a Canadian guy, this is like my New York Pro for those, East Coast guys, right? I mean, it's one of those ones, I see myself as the premier Canadian bodybuilder right now, and Toronto Pro is the show that I think is the premier Canadian bodybuilding show. So that's a title I'd really like to have under my belt. I did the show last in 2019. I certainly wasn't at my best. I mean, it wasn't a terrible showing, but it wasn't my best showing, and I was second to John De La Rosa there. I think things have changed now, and I think that I absolutely can win that show. Mm-hmm. So that would be, pending how the world is going by, the end of August. That'll be what I'm aiming for.
That show's the end of August?
Yeah, it's the 21st of August this year.
All right, so you're not interested in, you don't want to throw your hat into the mix at the New York Pro just to.
Nah, New York, that's too early for me now.
Really? I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I want some time to, I don't want to just show up as the same Iain that was at the Olympia. I know that was a good Iain and that could absolutely be competitive or, potentially win a show like New York or Tampa or any of these shows that I did like in 2020. But I want that time to, let my body relax a bit, and then have some time to improve to, show the judges and show myself that I'm still, taking their critiques, and trying to improve on them every time that I step back on stage, right?
So if the Toronto Pro is in August or end of August, what's the plan B? Let's say worst case scenario, COVID picks up somewhere and Canada shuts down again.
Yeah.
Then what?
So, I mean, yeah, obviously that is something I've thought about. I mean, there is some other shows around that time. So,
September 11th is the cutoff for this year's Olympia.
Yeah, exactly. So, the goal is really to just get this off season done in the next 8 to 10 weeks. And then I'll start just prepping and kind of I'm already in, pretty good striking range right now in terms of conditioning. Like I'm not 300 pounds where I need to drop 50 pounds to get in shape or anything right now. I'm maintaining a pretty good composition so that, whenever we kind of know what the things are like in terms of shows, I'm not too far without a striking distance to kind of make a strike for one of them. So, that's really where we're at, trying to maintain a good composition, but try and progress as much as we can within those confines. And then, hopefully Toronto does happen. If not, then we'll be ready to jump in anything that's kind of in that vicinity, right?
Yeah, I don't even know the schedule, but end of August, I don't know if there's another show left after that.
After that, no, I'd have to be doing something before for sure.
Right? Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, it would be a bummer if you miss out because, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I don't want to jinx nothing.
No, I don't know. And I mean, there's also a very big reality. I mean, I have to look at it from a promoter standpoint too. I mean, right now with the travel restrictions, I know to have international competitors come into Canada will be very difficult. We have quarantine rules and stuff like that, entering Canada. So, I maybe, for a show promoter to only have 6 or 7 Canadian only pros in there might not be very advantageous to spend your money on that. So I do understand that. And if this is kind of where things stay, I'm going to assume they won't have the show. So then, I'll make that decision the next 8 to 10 weeks, and then we'll start prepping for something earlier.
There's still, I don't know, but I heard there's still the Arnold Classic that is postponed to sometime later in the year. I'm not sure when, but
well, I think the cutoff is that Sunday, September 12th or 11th or whatever it is.
Right after the Rising Phoenix.
Yeah, well, I think that Arnold is that weekend right before in September there. I think that's what they were planning, right?
I don't know. All I know is that weekend before, that's the 11th is the Rising Phoenix.
Okay.
That's the female bodybuilding world championship. So I don't know about the Arnold. I heard the Arnold is in September.
Yeah.
But we don't know when. It could be at the end of September, then it would be too late too. I don't know.
Yeah. Depends when they do it. I mean, it would be nice if they had it. I don't think I'm at the point now where I necessarily think winning an Arnold is 100% realistic.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe it is. I mean, I think the physique that I brought to the Olympia could maybe make a shot for it. But you never know who's going to show up, and especially I wouldn't want to leave all my cards on the table for a show like the Arnold. If I already had my qualification in store, then I would absolutely take a stab at the Arnold. If I did won Toronto, then I would love to put my hat in the ring for the Arnold Classic, but I wouldn't want to leave all my chips on the table for a show of that caliber. I think that would be a little risky in terms of securing my Olympia berth.
I absolutely believe that you are capable of winning the Arnold, and I think you should do the Arnold, regardless of you qualified already or not.
I am planning to do it.
Yeah.
Depending on what the timing is.
Yeah, because you also know the top 3 at the Arnold will qualify for the Olympia. It's not only the winner; it's a top 3.
Okay. Well, then, definitely.
Wait a minute. Is it top 3?
I don't know what it is, but
no, it's not the top 3. It's not the top. Wait a minute. If it was top 3, it means Rami would have been qualified. No, it's not the top 3. I think that.
Yeah, it's usually just the winner, but I mean, from a points perspective, it's worth a lot. So, say I got in another show and I didn't win, that plus and the money is good.
Yes, get some extra money because listen. Who in the lineup? I mean, I don't see Rami or Brandon doing the Arnold. To be honest, if it's close to the Olympia, because nobody want to risk peaking at a show before in the Olympia. But who else is there that you say that you don't
the
think
next
you can
guy,
beat?
I guess that would be, that beat me at the Olympia would be Akeem. That'd be a guy that's kind of in the same ballpark as me, beat me at the Olympia. So, maybe someone like that would be in there. And then there's also some guys that weren't at the Olympia this year. I mean, you have guys like Nathan that wasn't there this year. And some other guys like that. So really depends who decides to come back. I mean, I think at this point, no matter who decides to show up, I can absolutely be competitive at a show like that.
Yeah, you need to give yourself you need to give yourself a little more credit, man. I'm serious. You're too humble. You're too humble, and this is in this sport. Sometimes you got to jump out.
I just don't want to leave that as my only chance to qualify. So, I would absolutely love to do the show, and I would like to plan to do that, but I would like to secure my qualification before that.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your inspiration in bodybuilding? If you even have one.
Question. I don't know if I have one. I mean, there's so many guys that, I love to follow in this sport. I mean, guys that, are
okay, let me rephrase the question. Who do you compare yourself to when you look at your physique? Who do you think you compare to the most?
In terms of guys that are competing today?
It doesn't matter. They are from back in the 70s. I don't care. It don't matter.
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I think.
Or when you listen, I've been there. I know exactly, and you're just too humble. That's why I'm asking you a different way.
You give me your opinion.
I tell you, when I trained back in the days, I envisioned myself to look like Kevin Levrone because I had the shoulders and I wanted to, I wanted that triceps. And when I was training, I was thinking about Kevin. Yeah. So I'm not saying everybody's like me, but there's something that got to drive you to get better in certain body parts. It's not like I wanted to be like Kevin in every body part. I remember when I was training back, I was thinking about Ronnie Coleman. You know, so but you don't have anybody in your mind, or I
mean, the person from a physique standpoint that I'd probably always emulated, and looked up to the most would probably be a guy like Jay. Mm-hmm. Just like a big white guy like me. Right. I think that's someone that I can really relate to and look up to the most. And I think there's obviously huge variances between his physique and mine. I think there's a lot of differences for sure. We train different methodologies and stuff like that. But in terms of his, career and his work ethic, and certain parts of his physique that I really like, that's probably one I look up to the most for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah. See, I thought you would have. I suspected you mentioned Branch Warren. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, Branch too. I mean, Branch. Branch is someone in terms of his, blue collar work ethic is someone I definitely look up to. Like guys like that, and guys like, competing today, like James Hollingshead, and, guys like that. But, I don't feel when I look at Branch's physique, like I relate to it a ton. I see some similarities for sure.
For me, it's that grainy muscularity,
the gnarly graininess.
Yes, yeah. That's what I compare it to. It's not the shape, it's that graininess that you present. Yeah. And when you stand there, you just somehow you stand out. You got body parts. What would you say you need to improve on? If you have to, everybody looking for improvements, but what do you think is your biggest weakness?
I think still my back shots are when I was in really good condition at this Olympia, I think they looked a lot better. I mean, conditioning will improve shots a lot more than you.
Yes.
So being in really good condition, I think made them look better. But I still think, in certain shots like my back double, I have a lot of width I can still improve on there. My front double is absolutely my weakest shot. So I think improving from the lats and the width there. I think it's just back width, and more muscularity to the back as a whole I need. My chest is something that's always been something I've really been working on. I always thought it was a muscularity issue, but I think it's one of those things that really, when push comes to shove at a show and I get a little bit flat, my chest is the thing that just is like dominant.
Yes, that's what I realized. You can't be flat.
No, exactly. So if I'm a little flat, I lose that. And, once I lose my chest, some of my best shots go. I mean, my side chest, my side tricep, that are some of my best shots, my most muscular, those shots that really show my thickness and my density. I lose so much pop through the chest. So, being full, I think is more of a fullness management thing than really a muscularity issue with my chest. But the more muscle you have on there, you can get away being a little flatter. So, I just want to keep packing it on there. And then I think the other thing from that is just through the hamstrings, like more width into the abductors, so that on my back shots, I'm closing that gap a bit more. I think my quads have some good width, but from the back shot, I think there's a little room to grow in there. So,
where do you see yourself, 21, in the Olympia? How far do you think you can move up? I have very high hopes, but I want to know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, my goal from here is just to make it in the first call out. I mean, I think that's, I think I was the next best guy. I mean, because Akeem was put into the first call out, so I was technically first place of the second call out.
Right.
So I think from here. Moving into that first call out would be, the biggest thing I'd really like to achieve. I mean, I know that shows are different every year. Different guy shows up, and I know I can't control those kind of factors. But I think if I continue to improve the way that I have been, I think that doesn't really matter a ton. And I think that making that first call out is definitely a realistic thing, and I think that's where I would like to go from here. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, if you look at all the newer guys from the second call out, Hunter Labrada, we got. Justin Rodriguez. Who else was in there? Well,
the call out I was in was me, Akeem, Justin, Dexter,
and Hunter.
Yeah, and then after that you're getting Hunter. Yeah, and then after that there was guys like Max Charles, Antoine.
Yeah. So in this call out, I'm looking at you and Hunter, and. Going forward to the New York Pro, we're looking at guys like Nick, Blessing.
Yeah.
What do you think about this going back and forth and they're trying to make this a two-man show? Do you believe in a two-man show there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand that it creates excitement, and I think that it's good for the sport in the sense that it gets people to watch. Do I think that sometimes it gets a little carried away on just being a storyline of two guys and can take away from some of the other athletes? Yeah, but I also think it's the other athletes' prerogative to promote themselves as well as Nick and Blessing have been. I mean, if they're not throwing their name into that conversation and trying to get themselves put up as talked for a winner of the show, I mean, I think that's their own fault.
I'm not even saying either one of them is going to win the New York Pro, but who do you think is going to be who if it's between Nick and Blessing? I don't even care for what placing. Who do you think wins? From what you know now, from what you see and from what you know.
Yeah, I think from what I know, I think Nick is going to be tough to beat from a conditioning standpoint. I think Blessing definitely has a little prettier shape, but I think when it push comes to shove and on a stage like New York, someone like Nick with that really gritty conditioning and, crazy from the back shots, his hamstrings are probably some of the best in the world right now. I think that's going to be a lot for Blessing to handle unless his conditioning is far superior than what he's demonstrated in the past.
Mm-hmm. So you think Nick will beat him?
I think Nick will edge him out, yeah.
Yeah. What about Justin Rodriguez? And I heard Akeem Williams throw his name in the mix too.
Yeah, I think if Akeem shows up, I think Akeem has to be the clear favorite. You know, the only thing, only knock you can make on Akeem is his consistency with his conditioning. Right. So, you know, I mean, Akeem could show up there in good shape like he was at the Olympia and blow the doors off that show. You know, or he could show up a little off, and a guy like Justin or Nick or, you know, even Blessing could absolutely beat him. So, you know, I think if Akeem comes in reasonable condition, I think that's his show to lose. You know, and I think Justin has really, you know, earned his name up in there as well. I mean, I think since he's been working with AJ Sims, he's been nothing but, you know, improving very consistently.
He reminds me almost Victor Martinez.
Yeah, very similar.
In some shots, it really looks like Victor. And I said it the first time when he hit that front double bicep. I said if he would just bend down a little bit, he would mimic Victor Martinez. So, who would you think is your biggest competition out of all those guys? Well, let's add the guy from England who set out last year's Olympia was coming back, James Hollingshead. Now, throw him in the mix. And I know you guys work with the same coach. So, what is there a silent rivalry there, or is it just, you know, it is what it is?
Joe Weider's Olympia here in Orlando, Florida. A little bit strange coming out of Las Vegas for all of those years.
Good evening, and welcome to the event that nearly never happened.
There's been an absence of a particular group of people on this stage that are back tonight. Tonight I'm here to say, welcome back to Miss Olympia.
Is there a silent rivalry there, or is it just, you know, it is what it is?
I are pretty good friends, and, you know, I think...
I know, but that friendship will end when you step on stage.
We've stepped on stage a few times before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've beat him twice in two shows.
Okay, so
I mean, I'll give James 100% the benefit of the doubt that he is a very different bodybuilder than when I competed against him. So I'm not thinking that it's going to be the exact same thing it was last time, but I also know that I've improved a lot. So it isn't just James that's improved. I have as well, and I demonstrated that at the Olympia, obviously. You know, I think going forward, you know, the biggest competition for me, out of those guys you listed, I think is going to be Akeem and James going forward.
Is it because of his size?
Yeah, I think James has got a lot of good size, and he can get in that really, really gritty conditioning as well, which I think is more comparable to me. You know, Akeem has a prettier structure than both of us, especially through the front butt double. He's always going to beat guys like James and I. But I think where we can overpass him is in that conditioning aspect, you know, the consistency with the conditioning, you know. You know, I think all it takes is one show for Akeem to show up a little off and me to be in the condition like I was at the Olympia. And I think I could absolutely turn the tides in a show like that. You know, and I think that going forward, I think there's always going to be battles, you know, like there has been between Hunter and I. I mean, I think, you know, this is kind of a storyline that we've set off now, starting at Tampa, and then we were one place apart at the Olympia. You know, we were 7th and 8th.
Right.
You know, and I'm assuming there'll be many, many more occasions like this in the future between Hunter.
But this is more friendly. You and Hunter was more friendly. There was no going back and forth like Blessing and Nick Walker.
Not to that extent. I mean, we had a couple. You know, it was more on the fun side, but you know, we had a bit of banter back and forth on social media, and we went on Fuad's podcast a couple times together and kind of, you know, duked it out a little bit. But yeah, it was always friendly in nature. I mean, you know, Hunter, you know, is definitely a friend of mine, and, you know, I have nothing but nice things to say about Hunter. So, you know, there's not really anyone that I have any animosity towards in terms of, you know, competitive spirit like that. You know, it's all these guys are guys that I think I'll still, you know, continue to compete against over the next couple of years. And I think, you know, hopefully I end up on the top of those exchanges, you know?
Well, you have the tools, definitely, you know, and age is on your side. So like I said, I didn't even know you were that young. So you got another 10 years of making great improvements. Yeah, absolutely. So, but talking about social media, you just brought that up. I realized, and I watch you on social media. It's a little bit better now, but sometimes you get a little emotional. You get it looks like you feel you have to explain yourself sometimes to people that comment, even though you don't owe them anything, not an excuse or nothing. Why is that? Why does it bother you sometimes when somebody says anything negative?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'm a very anxious person by nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting better at controlling myself when I see these comments, and I'll type out answers. Sometimes I'm like, sit for 20 seconds. If you still want to press enter at the end of that 20 seconds, press it. But 9 times out of 10, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I feel you, because I used to be the same way, man. I'm go way back in MySpace, where people say something stupid, and then you're just looking at where they're from. Where are they? Where can I find them? I mean,
and a lot of the times, I just want to, defend the current state of bodybuilding, not necessarily if it's a personal attack against myself. I have no issue with that. I mean, if someone wants to say that, my calves suck or my back sucks, I mean, I don't give a fuck. I mean, that's whatever. I mean, each their own. I mean, I think it's an objective sport and everyone can, give their opinion. I think that's the basis of what the sport is. But I mean, sometimes I think people are just generally just malicious when it comes to their comments. And, I know the more I respond to it, I know that it's a completely uphill battle, and that you can never. Because
the more you respond, the more they kind of come back at you, and the more they think they get you.
You can never win these arguments, no matter how based in logic your arguments are, how really right or wrong you are. It's completely irrelevant. So I'm getting better at that, but I'm just one of those people that when I see these things, I stew on them, and I feel the need to engage it. But I know over time that it's brought me nothing but more anxiety to my life, and that it doesn't cause. It hasn't resulted in any less people doing so by having this discussion.
And it's wasted time that you'll never get back, because you're going to have to get back to the threat, back to the comment, and see if he responded to your comment, and he goes back and forth. And I watch you. I was like, he keeps going back and forth with those people. What is, what is he doing? I'm like, you never win.
If I probably counted the amount of hours I've wasted on that,
Here's another thing. You're not only a successful IFBB pro bodybuilder, you're also a successful coach. You work with the reigning classic physique Mr. Olympia, Chris Bumstead. How did that come about? I know you married to his sister?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Chris, I've been with Melissa for just over 8 years now. So when I met Melissa, Chris was still like a young kid in high school. Like Chris is only 25, 26 years old now. So when I met him, he was 17 years old. And he was already at the point where he did have an interest in bodybuilding. And I think whether I'd come into their lives or not, I think still Chris would have ended up where he is today. I think I just expedited that process a bit by introducing him into this world a little quicker. And kind of showing him, that pathway as I had just kind of lived it myself, and, coming up into the pro ranks and stuff like this. So, I just really guided him into a future that he was already going to live, in my opinion,
So what would you say was the major factor for him? Because he's done something that I didn't think it was possible. The improvement from 2019 to 2020 was unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So what did you guys do? What was the reason for him making these huge changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a twofold thing here. I mean, I think one, for anyone that follows Chris, I mean, Chris does suffer from, autoimmune disease that affects his kidneys.
Right.
So, in previous years, 2018, 2019, he had some pretty aggressive flare-ups leading into the Olympia. Which, especially with kidneys and, the look in bodybuilding being so based off like getting dry and, conditioning, when your kidneys aren't working 100% effectively, that makes that process very, very difficult, So
having this disease, is that, what does that mean for him? Does that mean for him in the future he might need a kidney transplant, or is that just something he can live with?
I mean, it's an absolute possibility. I mean, obviously he works closely with a nephrologist, with a kidney specialist, and, we try and mitigate the advancement of his disease as much as we possibly can, and take things, as always, the outlook of maintaining his health comes over a priority of winning Olympias. Right. If his look suffers a little bit trying to maintain his health, I mean, that's just the reality that we have to go with. But, I think 2018, 2019, it was just a new thing we were dealing with, and we didn't really know how render a look while fighting against that. And I think going into 2020, we learned a couple different things. We learned, one, how to reduce the stressors that maybe cause these flare-ups, and then two, from the previous years, we kind of learned, okay, if this happens, we know how to problem solve now. So I think one was just, a better understanding of his disease and how to work through those and problem solve those. And I think another thing, did you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, my thing closed. And I think another thing was, he got with a new training partner. This young kid here from Canada.
So you guys don't train together? I thought you guys trained together.
We trained on and off. I mean, during my Tampa Pro Prep, when gyms were closed, we were training like in the basement gym together and stuff like that. But as a whole, Chris and I actually don't really train together a ton. No. I don't know what it is. I mean, Chris and I have really never gelled super well as training partners. I mean, it's weird to say because, we have such a close personal relationship, and a lot of our relationship, is founded, when we met and how it developed was around competing. But our training, styles and our, and almost I think our personal relationship makes it hard for us to kind of gel together. But he found this new kid that he was training with. And I think that, having someone with him every day that was really motivated and really keen on seeing Chris's success, and pushing Chris in the gym, I think made a big difference. And I think the biggest thing was just keeping him healthy. I mean, I think he was healthy for a whole 365 days leading into the Olympia, which was 365 days he could actually improve and not just worrying about, mitigating, the flare-ups. So I think once he actually had all that time to really improve, you could really just see, I think it wasn't that he necessarily improved a drastic amount. I mean, obviously some he did, but I think it was the previous years were just such a muted version of him that this was a real version of him.
Oh,
I think he was already there.
Yeah.
I think 90% of what he displayed this year was already there in the past. I think just when with all the stuff going on with his kidneys and, the level of diet we had to put him into, try and get the water off and the body fat down when we were fighting against his body was very difficult. And it just brought in a very, muted version of his physique, where this year, when you weren't fighting against him, we could see the true form of what Chris Bumstead is capable of.
Okay, so you think in the years prior, he probably wasn't looking the way he did in 2020 because it wasn't just possible because of the disease?
Absolutely.
From what you're explaining, this tells me that he's got to be very cautious, of course. I mean, and I believe that he is, absolutely working with the bare minimum of whatever because of what he's going through. That makes this even more impressive to see how he changed from 19 to 20, knowing that there's no way he's doing crazy stuff because, there's idiots out there. They would say,
if people saw the level of anabolics that Chris was using going into the 2020 Olympia, they wouldn't even believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, they would say there's no way he looked like that. That's impossible. But I mean, you're taking someone that, one, clearly has the upper echelon of genetics, someone that has the work ethic, as good as any top guy. And then he's not fighting against his disease. I mean, so, it was very minimal was needed to render that look. It was really all the other things coming into play that made the biggest difference.
I have absolutely no problem believing what you're saying because I know what it feels like when you have great genetics, when you don't need certain things where people, but idiots out there, it's like, oh, he'll probably blast it like crazy just to be better this year. And that's absolutely not the case. That makes it so much more impressive. And I can only take my hat off to him for not only making the necessary improvements because, people complaining about his back. You know how it is, especially when you win, they're trying to find something they're not happy with. They complain about his back. They complain about his arms. And he came back with, I think that was the biggest back improvement I've ever seen on anybody.
Yeah.
The only one that improved his back in a similar way, it went from a not so good back to a great back. That was Phil Heath.
Yeah,
because Phil Heath was at one point, he was criticized for having a weak back. You know what I mean? And he came back with the best back of all times. Yeah. I mean, next to Ronnie Coleman. So, I applaud you guys for that. And now I had, what's his name, Brian Jones in the studio last week. And I think Brian Jones is somebody that he's one of the few guys that can be dangerous for Chris. And this is simply because he's also a taller guy. I think it's, as long as Chris comes in shape, I don't think any of the shorter guys will be able to stand next to him. I don't think it's possible. They cannot beat him. It's just the way it is. Yeah. You know, this is what Arnold said back in the days when there was Frankie Colombo. He said a good tall bodybuilder always beats a good short bodybuilder. So,
especially in classic, because it can accentuate the lines and that X frame so much more when you have length to it. You know,
exactly. So, did you guys after the Olympia ever thought about like this Brian Jones? Damn, this dude looked really good.
Oh,
he could be dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and Chris and I both agree on this. I mean, it's funny you brought Brian up as specific because, you know, I've been asked this on other interviews, and Chris and I have had this discussion that, you know, looking at people with the most potential to really, you know, do damage in the next couple of years was definitely a name that was in the conversation, you know, multiple times. So, you know, and I think he's so new, like there's so much he can still learn and improve on, Brian, that I think that, you know, the sky's the limit for a guy with that kind of potential. And, you know, just being so, you know, starting off in that, I think it's, you know, he'll absolutely be up there in the, you know, top 2, top 3 in the next year or two.
Yeah, I believe so too. I told him, I said, you are one of the few guys that can stand next to Chris size-wise because of the height, you know, and there's, who's the other guy? Logan Franklin, who needs to add more size, of course. Yeah. Those are the taller guys that would match up better with Chris Bumstead, because I watched the prejudge again, you know, and we all know it was a battle, Brian and Chris Bumstead. And I realized how confident he was leading up to the Olympia. It was unbelievable. He was so confident. He basically told people, there's no way I'm going to lose. Yeah. You know? And then you come in looking like he did. Was this the matter? It was just, you know, I told you all. Told you all, there's no way. And he stood on stage. He stood out like a champ. He acted like he is a champ. You know what I mean? He was just, there's nothing else he could have done to make it any better.
That level of confidence that ensues in us now going forward. I mean, knowing that, you know, what we did to like obtain this look was so minimal and so like minimally invasive, you know, from a drug standpoint, from a health standpoint, that it just gave us a really, you know, good level of confidence that we can absolutely replicate this look and maintain his health at least for a few more years. Yeah. So, you know, he can defend his title, you know, a couple more times for sure. You know,
how do you prepare the final days for an Olympia as a competitor, and still worrying about someone else who's getting on stage the day before you?
It's kind of nice, to be honest. I mean, because it's kind of like you know, like Patrick is worrying about me, so I'm not worrying about myself, and then I'm worrying about Chris, kind of to keep my mind occupied instead of stressing out about myself. You know, when you sit there, you know, especially before the Olympia, you know, when you're there and you're in your Airbnb or your hotel, you almost have like too much time to like ruminate on all these thoughts, you know. And I think that was a big thing that, you know, hurt me a lot in Tampa. Is I went there by myself, you know, because with the COVID restrictions, my wife couldn't come with me at the time. So I sat in my hotel room and I just looked over Instagram over and over, looked at the pictures of Hunter, saw him looking awesome, you know, and I just sat there and cycled through it. You know, and I think being at the Olympia this year and having my mind kind of to worry about Chris, and then just let Patrick worry about me, you know, and I just followed what I was told to do, and Chris just followed what he was told to do, you know, really kept my mind occupied. And because we were in such a positive, you know, atmosphere, you know, like I had, like you said, I mean, I had no doubt from 6-8 weeks out, there was 0% chance in my mind that Chris would lose this Olympia. You know, I'd seen him in 2018, 2019, you know, and obviously I had some doubts, and, you know, rightfully so. I mean, his physique is not nearly what it was this year. But going into it this year, I could see in his physique that there was absolutely I would have bet my house on it. I mean, there's no chance in my mind that he was going to lose the Olympia this year. So, you know, when you have that confidence and that positive, you know, vibe in the house going into the Olympia, it was just a really great atmosphere to kind of peek into an Olympia for. And, you know, we were all really in good spirits, and it was a really enjoyable process, to be honest. Yeah,
you already mentioned it, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because people ask, why would someone who trains, who's a trainer of Mr. Olympia, classic physique, why would somebody like you need a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just for this, you know. I think
I know the answer, but I know some people that ask those questions, they don't know. They don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, either way, I think Patrick is smarter than I am. So whether I had the same, you know, coaching IQ as him and the same knowledge base and problem solving abilities, whether that was equal or not, you know, I still think, for me especially, you know, being kind of an anxious person in nature and being someone that does second guess myself, you know, I think it's a lot easier to do that for someone else with 100%, you know, conviction.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to yourself, I mean, you end up having these wild thoughts of, I need to be fuller, I need to be drier. And then that's when you end up doing ridiculous things. But when it's for someone else, it's very easy to, maintain a calm composure about it and, really see the finish line. But with yourself, it's so minute to minute of, I need to do this, I need to do this, So to have someone like Patrick, just to keep my head screwed on straight, either way, I think, I'm still learning from him. So I think there's a lot to be learned from, like a new information standpoint. But, just from keeping my head screwed on straight and not having to worry about these things for myself, I think does a huge amount for, just lowering that stress level going into a show. And, look, I think majority of top level bodybuilders could probably do the first 12 weeks of the prep by themselves. We know how to reduce calories a little bit and increase our cardio and how to manipulate our drugs. I think we all know that at this point. I think it really matters in that last week. And that's when your mind really starts fucking with you. And I think to have a good coach and someone that knows and has seen these situations and knows how to problem solve if something does happen is when it really becomes important,
Absolutely. And I say the same thing. It's not about what you know. It's about having a second eye, somebody looking at you and telling you exactly the things that you second guess, because you look at yourself every day. You don't get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom without hitting a few shots in the mirror because you want to see what's happening. So I know exactly how that feels. Man, listen, awesome. The conversation, I love the conversation, man. I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Giving us an insight on Iain Valliere. I say Valliere again. Listen, I'm looking forward to you breaking into the top 6 this year at the Olympia. Absolutely. I see you as high as top 3.
Thank you.
Okay? Just especially if you bring that same look, because now they know you, and if you come in, if you qualify at whatever show you choose and you knock it out the park, I believe that you are one of the top guys in the Olympia, because that's just the way it is, Dexter retired. I don't know if we'll see Phil again. I doubt it, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? So there's 2 spots open.
Yeah. No, we're definitely in a spot right now where there is a little bit of a changing of the guard.
Yes.
Gone, how many years we got left? Who knows if he comes back? Phil's on the way out. Dexter's gone now.
And from the newer guys, you and Akeem are the leader of the pack. So, so as long as you keep that up, as long as you make the necessary improvements, and as long as you stay healthy, I'll see some big things coming out of Canada, not only with Chris Bumstead, but also with Iain Valliere. So thank you one more time, man. I appreciate you, brother. I wish you all the best, man. And probably want to get you back on maybe closer to the Olympics so we can see where your confidence level is at that time. Okay? And stop arguing with the fans that are not really your fans, man. Some of these guys are just there to piss you off, and they can see they do it. All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. Tell Chris I'm going to be contacting him soon. I want to get him on the podcast, too.
All right, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. Take care, bro. Bye-bye.